Good afternoon. This is the LouRaePodcast. I'm your host, Austin Corus. Today, my guest is Dr. Thomas Wayne Edison. He's an artist, he's a professor at U of L, and he's an urban farmer. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
A little bit about your background. You're not an art professor at U of L, are you?
No, I am a Spanish professor, and I teach Spanish and Latin American literature and culture.
So, how long have you been an artist for?
Pretty much all my life. When I was in high school, I would do projects for extra credit in my Spanish class, and it was using art. And when I was at the university, I was going to be an art major, but taking art classes, I discovered that art classes were fun to take the classes, but I didn't like the critiques. I just really liked making art and not really discussing it. So I ended up becoming a Spanish teacher because I like the rules and the structure. But now I'm a Spanish teacher that does art.
But you also enjoy kind of the freedom of expression with the actual art as well, right?
Yeah, it's really therapeutic. To kind of look at different materials and create things from what doesn't look like you could actually make something out of.
It can be difficult to find structure in that. Like, it almost feels limiting in a lot of ways instead of just looking at a blank canvas and putting your emotions on it.
Mm-hmm. Correct. I agree with that.
Tell me a little bit about the materials you use in your creative process, because they're not always what you might think of, like a normal canvas or acrylic paint. What do you use?
I started off with pencil, ink. I love using dots to do art, but in the last few years, I've used bottle caps, glitter glue, and I have items in my garage, mirrors, pieces of glass. That's why there's one piece of art that really fascinates me that's got shattered mirrors, because I'm fascinated how they did that. Because in most American alleys, well, let's put it this way, in many of the alleys in West Louisville, you can find shattered mirrors. And I want to do something artistic with that. Things that people discard, especially bottle caps. I mean, when I travel, a lot of times I will see bottle caps, and if it's an exotic pattern, I will collect it, because making mosaics out of the bottle caps, you start to notice that there's certain colors. For example, sky blue. It's very hard to find bottle caps that are sky blue, but brown and golds and rust, there's a lot of those. So you start to figure out what patterns I can make using those, but then highlighting by using pinks and sky blues, but it can't be a big space. It's got to be a little space. So it's kind of paying attention to what's discarded and how you can make something out of it.
Right, and then in that way, they become much more precious to you, because finding a sky blue bottle cap brings you such a sense of like joy and awe. It's like, oh, I wonder what I can use with this material.
Mm-hmm. Yes. When I was in Cuba, with some students, I had the students to collect bottle caps on the beach. And not only were they different colors, but they were, because of the salt and the water, a lot of them were rusted. So that allowed me to do some incredible stuff with rusted bottle caps to kind of show the transition from being new and shiny and aged and rusted to the point that you couldn't even see the paint on them anymore.
So where were you inspired to start kind of using this recycled medium?
I used to go to a wonderful bar that's closed down now, but it was called the Bardstown on Bardstown Road. And they would always put their beer bottle tops inside of a bucket. And I asked them, what do you do with those? They said, at the end of the week, we throw them out. And I said, can I have them? So each week when I would come, I would bring a plastic bag, and they would dump the bottle caps in the bags. I would take them home, sanitize them, and store them in bushel baskets. And I had at one time 6 bushel baskets of bottle caps. Now I have 4 bushel baskets of bottle caps. So I've got a lot of producing to do.
We can't wait to see it.
Yes.
From what you've told me, it always seems like you're involved in some kind of community somewhere in the world, whether it be talking to poets in Uruguay or finding a fun bar in town here in Louisville. Tell me more about your urban farming project that you kind of have a dream for, and tell me what you've been growing in your own garden as well.
Right now, I am starting to harvest blackberries. Incredible blackberries about the size of your thumb, very large, juicy, thornless blackberries. I had strawberries. And my urban farm is called Chango Gardens. Chango is a Yoruba warrior. Um, and I kind of feel like in West Louisville to have an urban farm with the goal of offering fresh produce to the people that live in the neighborhood, that's a task that you would need a major warrior to support. So that's where the Chango comes from. And I love doing it. For me, it's a hobby. And I decided, well, if it's something I love doing, it would be nice to kind of make it a nonprofit to help spread that message, to get other people to convert their backyards into a space where they can grow edible, fruit and vegetables. And rather than spending a lot of money to either kill the weeds or make the grass look green, you can grow something that somebody can actually eat, like tomatoes. And it's fascinating. A lot of people don't like tomatoes until they try a fresh tomato pulled right off the vine. It has a flavor that's incredible, a flavor and a texture that's different from what you would get in the supermarket.
Right, and there's a certain sense of real pride in being able to show off what you've created, share it with your neighbors, and just enjoy it on your own porch in your own land.
Correct. Like when people come to visit me at Chango Gardens, one of the things that I do is I will give them I have chickens, of free range chickens, and I will give them an egg, and they're so fascinated, to get this warm egg that has been under a hen. And a couple of times people have taken them home and they've cooked them, and they talked about how different the flavor was, because we usually just get the eggs that we buy at the grocery store. So to get one that what it's been eating, and it's connected, it's not just a random egg, it's an egg that you actually saw the animal that produced it. It makes an impact on people, and I like that reaction because it helps connect people with nature.
Yeah, and you can even say that about your art in a way, because as you kind of look at a mere bottle cap, one might see, a refuse, but if you look deeper into an object, you can really form a kind of connection with it and see what it could become. And the same with raising animals. One might see hassle or a lot of work, but if you work with them and get to know them and treat them well, then they give you these incredible gifts that then can be used in, culinary delight or whatever have you.
Yeah, and with gardening and with art, with gardening, a lot of times you're starting with something, your palette, which is the ground that you're working with, and a lot of times the first year it doesn't look like what you want it to look like, but 5 years later, all of a sudden you have this incredible space that an artist can see, other people cannot. And doing, the art that I do, when you look at it really close up, especially working with the bottle tops, when you're really close up, you can't really get a good sense of it. So you have to be about 10 feet away from it, and then all of a sudden you can actually see the image. What I started doing was posting pictures on Instagram, photographing it stage by stage, because it allowed me to document these random, like, if you're doing an image, you put the eyes in and the mouth, and then little by little you build around it. It helps people to kind of understand the process, because a lot of people, when they see it, they go, oh wow, this is nice, but they don't know how you do it. So by photographing it, it allows them to follow the steps along with you.
Yeah, and with a community garden too, if you show people how to do it themselves and you show them the process, then they're much more encouraged to do it on their own yards. Yours is about less than half an acre, right?
Correct.
And it seems like a huge canvas, and it is in a way, because it does take so much work and effort to kind of cover that entire thing and upkeep it and keep it running.
Mm-hmm. And you learn, like right now in my trunk, I have cardboard. And cardboard is what I use to put around, for example, tomato plants, so that I don't have to worry about pulling weeds. I just use the cardboard to suppress the weeds as a mulch, a type of weed control. And there's these tips that as you start to garden, you can do a shortcut, especially when you don't have a large labor pool. You have to figure out what is a way to do it. And cardboard is something that it's very easy to find. Cardboard for free. Cardboard, not as much newspaper. It used to be newspaper, but I can't find newspaper, but I can always find cardboard.
Yeah, and it's cost effective. It makes people feel a lot better about the prospect of turning something that they have into something else without worrying about supplies or buying bags of mulch or driving, to Lowe's and having to haul these huge bags out and everything like that. You can really use the materials you have around you and really create something beautiful and something that provides for you.
And another resource that I just started using is wood chips. Tree companies, when they cut down trees and they shred them up, they have wood chips, and they have to pay to take them to a landfill to dump them. And there's a place called Chip Drop, where if you want a large quantity of wood chips, they will bring them to you. You might have to pay $20 for gasoline, but it's a way that you can get tons of wood chips, and they work really well as a mulch as well. I try to put, when I'm able to, I'll put the wood chips on top of the cardboard, so it kind of weighs it down, and wood chips will hold moisture. And it's a resource that is available everywhere, and you just have to ask for it. Or if you have a friend that cuts down trees and they have a wood chipper, if you say, please give me wood chips, they will give you all the wood chips that you need, to the point that you will tell them, stop bringing me wood chips.
Going back to your art and the garden in general, what do you hope to show people when you've created these artistic experiences that people see?
I would say simplicity, showing how something that we think is complicated, it's really simple. It just takes patience and, I guess, creativity to be able to do it in a way that it demystifies it. Because a lot of people, when you give them bottle caps, they have no clue what to do with it. But as you break it down in little steps and you go, all you do is this. And I would love to do workshops to get young kids to see that they could actually do a 12-inch square. They could do something really beautiful with bottle caps. But first they have to really be able to envision what they want to make, what they want to produce. Yeah, and I think that kind of breaking down the barriers, that because a lot of us are intimidated, me too, about what we're able to do. And once we accomplish a little part of it, then we go, oh, okay. Then you get a bigger pattern, like I work now with 4 by 4 feet square pieces. And it's amazing. It takes 6 months to do a piece of art, but it's really nice to be able to see the finished product. And they're usually iconic individuals. So when people look at them, they'll usually know who it is, like Frida Kahlo. Or Billie Holiday, Oprah Winfrey. These individuals are created with the natural colors of the bottle caps. I have to say that because a lot of people think that I paint the bottle caps. No, it's just the natural, whatever's there, whatever is on the bottle cap, that's what you incorporate in the piece of art.
Going back to what you said about simplicity, you mentioned yesterday that you strive to combine Western materials and Western mindsets with more Eastern-inspired spirituality and spiritual philosophy even. What's the process behind that, or what's the thought behind that?
I want to say this is something I became conscious of working with the bottle caps. Getting the bottle caps cleaning them, and also blessing them. You know, because with the medium, you want to make sure that it's clean, and you want to make sure it's something that kind of feels fresh. So I do that. I purify them before I use them, which is just, using water and, different things that are kind of like will strip away any energy that's not going to be productive. So the Western material are the bottle caps, which is a result of mass marketing and capitalism. And then to be able to create things like the yin yang image or a mandala, it kind of, you look at it and it kind of jolts you because you're not sure which direction. The capitalist element is there, especially if it's a bottle cap that is very, very recognizable. I won't mention any names, but there's certain bottle caps when you see the name on it, you go, oh wow. But then if you look at it in combination with other bottle caps, then all of a sudden you see this image that takes you away from being in the United States and puts you in a different space, a more kind of neutral space, a spiritual space. Because I think that the idea of really powerful art is it detaches you from where you are currently, and it suspends you a little bit, and you go, wow, what is that? It makes you wonder. It makes you curious about it. With the bottle caps, I nail each one into the wood, and selecting and handling each bottle cap individually, that in itself is really rich. It's like a ritual, doing the ritual over and over. And then sometimes I have to take a bottle cap off and put it somewhere else. And all of that is this incredible attention paid to each bottle cap to create this image, which is, humongous. But each bottle cap has its role.
Yeah, and you're almost reclaiming it in a way by, as you said, when all these brand names are put together, and then they kind of almost lose that identity that's been branded onto these bottle caps, and then they again become materials for us to use creatively or however we'd like to use them, and they kind of lose that original capitalistic mindset that they were created with, and instead they become objects of creation and art.
Mm-hmm. And here in the United States, like whenever you think of a Coca-Cola cap, red. Well, when I was in Uruguay, their Coca-Cola bottle caps are teal. So I spent the 3.5 months I was there, every time I saw a Coca-Cola bottle cap, I grabbed it. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with it, because to me that is so fascinating to see an image that for me I always associate as being red to being teal. There's something powerful that's going to come out of it. It's right now, it's kind of marinating in my brain, but it will come out soon.
That's great. So you've lived in Louisville for almost your whole life. You grew up here. Tell me, what is the Louisville art scene like to a native like yourself? How do you see it?
I think the art scene, and I'm not completely in the middle of the art scene, but I know I have friends that are artists, and I think it's very diverse. There's a lot of artists that do traditional types of artwork. Then there's others that do expressionist type of art. I think there's a challenge that there's not enough spaces for artists to be able to show what they're producing. I think there's a lot of artists that are detached doing their own thing, but they haven't found kind of like some type of wheel where they can all connect. LouRae Gallery is a good example of a place, and we need more spaces like that so that artists can feel that there is a place for them to show what they produce. Like, I make art. I'm not good at marketing it. I'm not good at selling it. For me, creating it is more important than anything else. But there's a part of me that's like, well, it'd be nice if I can show it and people can appreciate it and purchase it. And I think that artists, especially those of us that are not well known, we need more avenues.
And there's something to say about being able to have a space and look at other people's art and to be inspired by it as well. I remember you said yesterday, seeing yourself in other people's art, almost like a mirror.
Yes, and being able to talk with them about what it is that they do and kind of think, oh, interesting, and trying to incorporate it into, what I do, or look at what I do in a different way.
Finally, then, what would you say to people who might not be so confident with their artistic voice, or might not feel that they know what to do with their creative thoughts and desires? What should they do to express themselves?
I would tell them, just do it. Don't even think about it, but just do it. And the more you start to do it, you start to kind of hone into your niche. If it's using paint, if it's using seeds, there's a lot of materials out there, and cost should not be a factor. The key thing is to be able to find a way to express what it is that you want to express. And the more you do that, the more you start to kind of perfect your style. And if you're lucky, you'll be able to make money doing it. But if not, you still will be able to express something from outside of express something inside of you for others to be able to look at and appreciate.
Is there anywhere that people can follow your artistic journey or learn more about your urban farming, things like that?
Yes, for the urban farming, they can go to changogarden.com, or they can go to Instagram, chango_garden, and those will let them see photographs from Chango Gardens. And then my artwork, they can go to Thomas Edison 546, and that will let them see the artwork. As I produced the artwork, like I said earlier, I took pictures of, and that lets people see the artwork as it was being created.
Dr. Edison, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. We're really excited to see more of your interesting art and kind of how it helps to shape the city, and maybe see what kind of urban farming projects will come to our town.
Great, and thank you for the opportunity to talk, and thank you for giving voice to many of the artists here in Louisville.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.